Millionaire sees homeless girl feeding her lost mother. What he did next shocks everyone. Maya Thompson was only 14 years old, but life on the streets of Chicago had aged her eyes far beyond her years. She carefully held a still-warm styrofoam lunchbox she had received from the Oak Street Baptist Church food program, her only guaranteed meal of the day. Her stomach had been growling desperately for almost 18 hours, but Maya walked slowly through the streets of downtown, looking for a safe place to eat without being bothered. Life on the streets had taught her to be cautious, to avoid crowds, and to always be alert to dangers that ordinary people didn't even imagine existed. That's when she saw her. An elderly woman, elegantly dressed in a camel wool coat and expensive leather shoes, was sitting directly on the cold pavement of Michigan Avenue. Her gray hair, which had clearly been professionally styled that morning, was now tousled by the icy Chicago wind. She looked around in complete confusion, her light blue eyes filled with fear and deep disorientation. People hurried past her, some stopping to look curiously for a few seconds, but no one approached to help or even ask if she was okay. "Where's my house?" the woman muttered repeatedly, her hands trembling as she touched the pavement as if searching for something familiar she could recognize. "I live on Park Avenue, or was it Madison Avenue? Robert always picked me up in the big blue car. Where is Robert? He promised he'd come back." Her words came out fragmented and confused, mixing present and past in a mental fog that Maya recognized immediately. Her own grandmother had suffered from Alzheimer's before she died 2 years ago, and Maya had spent months caring for her before also losing her mother. Maya approached slowly, crouching down beside the woman carefully so as not to startle her. She could clearly see that this was someone from the upper class. The coat was obviously an expensive brand, the watch on her wrist sparkled with small genuine diamonds, and even though she was lost and completely confused, there was a natural dignity in her gestures that spoke of a lifetime of privilege and refined education. But there, sitting on the cold, dirty floor of Chicago, she was as vulnerable and unprotected as any homeless person Maya knew from the city's unforgiving streets. "Hi ma'am," Maya said in a soft, reassuring voice. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The woman looked at her with eyes that alternated constantly between moments of clarity and a confused fog that seemed to envelop her like a thick veil. "Do you know my son? He's a very important man, very busy. He has important meetings every day, big black cars." She stopped abruptly, frowning with visible effort. "But I can't remember where I left my house. Did someone move my house?" Maya's heart ached painfully. She knew that particular confusion all too well, that terrible fear of being lost in a world that suddenly made no sense anymore. Without hesitating for a second, she opened her styrofoam lunchbox, still steaming roast chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, and green beans, all still deliciously hot and aromatic. It was literally the first hot food she had seen in 2 whole days, but looking at the lost woman, visibly shivering from the cold, Maya knew exactly what she had to do without a second thought. "You must be very hungry," Maya said gently, picking up the plastic fork and carefully cutting a small piece of chicken. "Here, have a little bite. It will do you good." She held the fork delicately close to the woman's mouth, just as she had done so many times with her beloved grandmother years ago, before the cruel disease took her away forever. The woman hesitated for a long moment, looking at Maya suspiciously, then slowly opened her mouth and accepted the food, chewing with difficulty. "It's very tasty," the lady said with a sudden bright smile that completely transformed her tired face. "My mother used to make chicken just like this when I was a little girl. Or was it yesterday? I can't remember when it was." Maya continued to feed her with infinite patience, alternating small portions for herself from time to time, but always making sure the lady ate most of the precious meal. The bitter Chicago cold made her hands ache terribly, but she remained seated there on the ground next to this stranger who clearly needed desperate help and basic human care. People continued to rush by on the busy sidewalk, some casting quick, judgmental glances at what appeared to be 2 homeless people sharing food on the dirty street. No one stopped to ask if they needed medical help or if they knew where the woman was supposed to be. Maya was completely used to being invisible to society, but she felt deeply saddened to see how even a woman who was clearly lost and in obvious danger was completely ignored by an urban society too busy to care about strangers in distress. The icy Chicago winter wind cut through her thin clothes like razors, but Maya didn't move for a second. She knew perfectly well what it was like to be lost and scared, with no one to help or care. It didn't matter who this woman was, rich or poor, important or forgotten. At this particular moment, she needed basic human compassion. And Maya, even though she had almost nothing material in the world, still had that to offer generously. "What is your name, ma'am?" Maya asked gently, her voice full of genuine care. The woman looked at her with a vague, lost expression. Eleanor. I think it's Eleanor. But sometimes I forget completely. Sometimes I don't know who I am. Her words came out as broken whispers, laden with a deep sadness that made Maya's heart ache even more intensely. Eleanor is a very beautiful name, Maya said with a genuine warm smile. I'll stay here with you until someone comes to get you. And so they stayed, two lost souls finding comfort in each other as the indifferent city continued its relentless pace around them, two women separated by decades and completely different circumstances, but united by the basic humanity that still existed in a world that often forgot to look at those who needed it most. Richard Blackwood sat tense in the back seat of his black Mercedes-Benz, his cell phone pressed firmly against his ear as he personally coordinated the largest and most desperate search operation of his entire life. Exactly 6 hours and 20 minutes ago, his mother Eleanor had mysteriously disappeared from the luxury rehabilitation center where she was undergoing specialized treatment for advanced Alzheimer's. High-definition security cameras showed her calmly walking out the front door during a nurse shift change, wearing her favorite camel wool coat and seemingly lucid enough to hail a yellow cab and give the driver directions. No, we still haven't been able to find her anywhere, he said tensely to the city's most expensive private investigator, his voice laden with growing concern and emotional exhaustion. Immediately expand the search to a 15-kilometer radius. She could literally be anywhere in Chicago right now, and we have no idea how long she can survive on her own on the streets. Richard was the CEO and founder of Blackwood Industries, a powerful real estate investment empire worth exactly $2.8 billion, but all his money and political influence felt completely useless at this terrible moment. He simply couldn't buy his mother's sanity back or magically turn back time to when she still recognized him perfectly. His executive assistant was efficiently coordinating an impressive team of over 50 specialists, armed private security guards, experienced private detectives, even a military helicopter methodically flying over the entire city in systematic search patterns. The Chicago Metropolitan Police had been officially alerted, all hospitals in the region were on high alert, and recent photographs of Eleanor were being urgently distributed to all shelters and social service centers in the extended metropolitan area. Eleanor Blackwood, at the elegant age of 72, had patiently built, together with her late husband Robert, one of the largest and most respected real estate empires in the entire American Midwest, but now she was lost somewhere dangerous on the icy streets of the very city she had helped shape architecturally for decades. Mr. Blackwood, the professional voice of his personal driver, James, abruptly interrupted his anguished thoughts. There's an urgent call from one of our lead detectives. He firmly believes he may have located your mother in the busy Michigan Avenue area. Richard's heart literally leapt in his chest with sudden hope. He had spent the last endless hours obsessively imagining the worst possible scenarios, his mother seriously injured, completely terrified, or something even worse that he couldn't even verbalize. Cruel Alzheimer's had systematically stolen so many precious things from her, her crystal-clear memory, her proud independence, her vibrant and commanding personality that once dominated corporate boardrooms and elite charity events with natural authority. The luxury car sped quickly through the familiar streets of Chicago, passing the imposing modern skyscrapers that his own family had helped finance and build decades ago, when the city was still aggressively expanding skyward. Richard vividly remembered when he was just a curious child and his mother would regularly take him to see the construction projects in progress, patiently explaining how each building represented someone's concrete dream finally becoming impressive physical reality. "Never forget this, Richard," she would say in a firm, instructive voice. "Our money comes directly from the hopes and dreams of working people. We have an absolute moral responsibility to honor that at all times." Now, gazing wistfully out the bulletproof window at the busy, impersonal streets, he wondered with deep remorse how many times he had deliberately forgotten that fundamental lesson in recent years, focused too obsessively on growing profits and aggressive expansion to properly remember the genuinely human side of the family business. The bitter irony was not lost on him. He owned commercial properties worth literally hundreds of millions of dollars spread across 3 states, yet he could not find and protect the most important and beloved person in his entire life. "Right there, sir," James pointed with growing urgency. "On the right side of the street, near that corner store. I think it's definitely her." Richard immediately followed James's experienced gaze and felt his heart stop completely for one agonizing second. There was his mother, Eleanor Blackwood, sitting directly on the cold, dirty sidewalk as if she were just another ordinary homeless person. But she wasn't completely alone and abandoned as he had feared. A young girl, clearly living on the streets by her visibly worn clothes and unkempt appearance, was carefully kneeling beside her, patiently feeding her with a plastic spoon from a simple white styrofoam lunchbox. The touching scene hit him like a devastating punch in the stomach, completely taking his breath away. There was his mother, one of the most powerful and influential women he knew personally, reduced to a confused old lady being gently cared for by a child who clearly had absolutely nothing material. And yet, there was something deeply moving and almost sacred about the girl's spontaneous kindness, the affectionate way she spoke softly and offered precious food without expecting anything material in return. For several long minutes, Richard just watched in complete silence, utterly unable to move, watching his mother smile genuinely for the first time in many months as she accepted basic human care from a completely generous stranger. All his adult life, he had firmly believed that money solved all problems, that financial resources were always the ultimate answer to any difficulty. But there, on the cold, unforgiving sidewalk of Chicago, a homeless girl was doing something that all his astronomically vast fortune had failed to accomplish. She was making his mother feel genuinely safe, loved, and cared for as a dignified human being. Tears burned his eyes as he watched, mesmerized, the pure compassion in direct action. This brave child, who probably didn't know where her next meal would come from or where she would sleep that night, was generously sharing her food with a complete stranger in need. She was offering human dignity where others offered only condescending looks of pity. She was being genuinely human in a world that had completely forgotten how to be. Richard stepped out of the armored car very slowly, his heart pounding violently against his ribs as every muscle in his body trembled imperceptibly with nervousness. Each deliberate step toward the two vulnerable figures sitting on the cold sidewalk seemed to last an agonizing and surreal eternity. He could clearly hear fragments of the intimate conversation between Maya and her beloved mother. The girl spoke with infinite patience and genuine tenderness that he hadn't witnessed in a long time in his daily interactions with Eleanor, especially in the difficult last few months since the disease had progressed significantly. "My name is Maya," the girl was saying calmly, offering another careful piece of warm food with gentle movements. "And what is your name, ma'am?" Eleanor smiled vaguely, her blue eyes desperately trying to focus on the reality around her. I was someone very important in the past. I had an absolutely wonderful and successful son. He built towering buildings that literally touched the white clouds." Her words came out slow and fragmented, mixing memories from decades past with present confusion, but Maya simply nodded with complete and genuine understanding, as if completely fragmented conversations were the most natural thing in the world for her, demonstrating an impressive emotional maturity for her age. "I am absolutely certain that he loves you deeply," Maya replied with automatic and natural kindness, gently wiping the corner of Eleanor's mouth with a crumpled paper napkin she had found in her pocket. "Sometimes even the most important people get temporarily lost. But there is always someone special looking for them with unconditional love." Richard felt hot tears burning dangerously in his eyes as he listened to these simple but profound words. When exactly was the last time he had spoken to his mother with such natural kindness and genuine patience? When was the last time he had enough patience for her constant repetitions and growing confusion without showing irritation or impatience? In the last 2 terrible years, since the official diagnosis of Alzheimer's had become an inescapable and devastating reality, Richard had become progressively too efficient and emotionally cold in his daily dealings with his deteriorating mother. He quickly hired the best professional caregivers available in the country, meticulously chose the most expensive specialized medical facility, and obsessively ensured that she had absolutely everything money could buy. But he himself had gradually become distant, painfully impatient with her irritating repetitions, publicly embarrassed by her awkward social blunders, treating his obligatory visits as business appointments to be fulfilled as quickly and efficiently as possible. "Ma'am." Richard approached very slowly, his voice deliberately soft and controlled so as not to startle either of the two vulnerable people. Maya looked up immediately, her dark eyes widening completely at the sight of the impeccably dressed man in a $3,000 suit standing imposingly before them like a figure from another world entirely. She instinctively placed herself protectively between Richard and Eleanor, shielding the elderly lady as if it were her personal and sacred responsibility, demonstrating a protective instinct that deeply touched the billionaire's heart. "She's perfectly fine," Maya said quickly, her voice laden with natural defensiveness. "I didn't hurt her in any way. She was just very lost and very hungry." There was clear defensiveness in her young voice, as if she automatically expected to be accused of something terrible or criminal by adults in positions of authority. Richard knelt down carefully, getting down to their eye level so as not to appear intimidating. "I know perfectly well that you didn't hurt her," he said, his voice choked with deep emotion. "In fact, you were taking wonderful care of her. This lady is my mother, Eleanor. Maya's dark eyes widened in utter shock and disbelief. Your mother? She glanced quickly between Richard and Eleanor, noticing now for the first time the obvious resemblance in their light blue eyes and distinctive chin shape, as well as other subtle facial features that revealed their obvious kinship. She was so completely lost and confused. I really didn't know what to do, so I just stayed here with her to keep her company. Her voice trembled slightly with growing emotion. I'm so sorry if I did anything wrong or inappropriate. You did absolutely nothing wrong, Richard said, his voice completely choked with deep emotion and genuine gratitude. You did something truly extraordinary and rare. You took care of a complete stranger when no one else in the entire town cared in the slightest. He looked fondly at his mother, who was watching between them with growing confusion but no fear. Mom, it's me, Richard. I've been desperately searching for you for hours. Eleanor studied his masculine face for a long tense moment, her eyebrows furrowed in intense concentration. Richard, she said hesitantly, as if testing the name on her tongue. My boy has grown so much. But where exactly were you when I needed you? I was waiting patiently on the corner of our old house, but the entire house was completely gone. She began to grow visibly agitated, her hands trembling. All the family homes were gone, Richard. And I just couldn't remember the way back home. Maya gently took Eleanor's cold hand between her small warm hands. Everything is perfectly fine now, she said in an incredibly calm and reassuring voice. Your son has finally found you. You're completely safe. Maya's reassuring presence worked like magic immediately. Eleanor calmed down visibly, smiling again with genuine serenity. Richard watched in complete awe at the girl's natural intuitive ability to instantly calm his mother, something precious that he had completely lost sight of amid his own growing frustration and emotional pain. What exactly is your name? Richard asked gently, his voice overflowing with sincere gratitude. Maya Thompson, she replied very softly. And you really don't need to worry about me. Now that you've found your mother, I can just go away and not bother you anymore. But Richard couldn't take his eyes off her for a second. This brave girl, who clearly had nowhere to sleep or anything to eat on a regular basis, had generously shared her only daily meal with a complete stranger in need. While he and 50 highly paid people were desperately searching for Eleanor all over the city, this homeless child had been literally the only person in all of Chicago to stop and offer genuine practical help. Maya, he said very carefully, weighing each word, where are your parents? The girl's thin shoulders stiffened visibly. I don't have any living parents. My mother died last year of terminal cancer, and I never knew my biological father. I was in several temporary foster homes for a while, but I deliberately ran away. It was genuinely better and safer to live on the streets. Her words came out fast and defensive, as if she automatically expected harsh moral judgment or condescending pity from people in positions of authority. Eleanor, who had been silently observing the emotional exchange between Richard and Maya, suddenly spoke with surprising clarity that cut through the mental confusion that usually enveloped her like thick fog. This special girl has genuinely kind eyes, Richard. Just like yours when you were little, before you became so serious and constantly busy with important business. Her words, despite the obvious mental confusion that afflicted her daily, carried a penetrating emotional clarity and intuitive wisdom that made Richard swallow hard with difficulty. Even in her mental state altered by cruel illness, his mother had immediately recognized something special and rare in Maya that had taken him precious minutes to fully realize. Maya, Richard said slowly, consciously making the most important decision of his entire life, what if I told you honestly that you no longer have to live dangerously on the icy streets? That you could have a real home, a quality education, a true family that cares? Maya stared at him with deep, instinctive suspicion, her dark eyes shining with a bitter wisdom gained through painful experiences. Rich people never adopt street girls without wanting something specific in return. I've seen it happen before with other vulnerable children. Her voice carried a melancholy wisdom that number 14-year-old should possess, the result of years of surviving in a world that had taught her that all kindness came with a hidden price. You are absolutely right to be cautious and suspicious, Richard admitted honestly, respecting her intelligence and life experience. But let me explain something fundamental that I discovered today. For exactly 2 years, I spent literally millions of dollars trying to take proper care of my mother. I hired the best medical specialists available in the country, the best certified professional caregivers, and placed her in the best medical facility in the entire country. And in just 5 minutes, you managed to do something that all my money could never accomplish. You made her genuinely smile and feel safe." He knelt down again carefully, getting exactly at Maya's eye level to establish a more intimate and less intimidating communication. "I'm not offering traditional charity or doing this out of pity. I'm offering a mutually beneficial and honest exchange. You clearly have a rare natural gift for caring for vulnerable people who are suffering. My mother desperately needs someone just like you, someone who will treat her with patience and dignity. And you obviously need a stable family who will love you unconditionally. Perhaps we can help each other in a meaningful way and create something beautiful together." Maya looked deeply into Eleanor's eyes, who had grabbed her thin arm with trembling hands and was whispering repeatedly with growing urgency, "Please don't go, dear girl. You remind me of the warm feeling of a real home." Maya's dark eyes filled completely with tears, tears she had learned to suppress rigorously years ago in order to survive on the ruthless streets. "What if I really don't know how to be part of a normal family? What if I mess everything up completely and disappoint you? Then we'll learn together patiently, step by step," Richard said with genuine simplicity and a trembling voice. "I clearly don't know how to take care of my mother properly anymore, as you can see. You could teach me to be patient again. And I can give you every opportunity you truly deserve, an excellent education, emotional stability, a bright future full of possibilities." He paused, looking directly into the eyes of the girl who had saved much more than just his mother on that transformative day. "Maya, you saved my mother today in a way that goes beyond the physical. Let me save you too." At that precise moment, on the busy sidewalk of Chicago, with hundreds of people rushing by without even noticing the touching scene, 3 lives intertwined in a way that would change everything forever in unimaginable ways. Maya, who had spent years being completely invisible to society, was finally seen and valued for who she truly was. Eleanor, lost in her own deteriorating mind, had found a genuine angel disguised as a homeless girl. And Richard learned the most valuable lesson of his life, that sometimes the greatest true blessings come disguised as the greatest apparent sacrifices. "Yes," Maya whispered finally, tears streaming freely down her cheeks, dirty from the cold. "Yes, I want to try. I want to be part of your family." Eleanor smiled radiantly with a sudden and touching lucidity. "My granddaughter," she said clearly, as if a fog had lifted. "I finally found my special granddaughter." In that transformative moment, Richard understood deeply that he wasn't just gaining an adopted daughter, he was regaining his own humanity lost over years of obsessive focus on business. And Maya, for the first time in endless years of loneliness, genuinely felt that she belonged somewhere safe in the world. The 3 of them embraced right there on the cold sidewalk, an unlikely but real family born of pure kindness, while Chicago continued to spin indifferently around them, oblivious to the genuine miracle that had just happened right in the middle of its cold, impersonal streets. On the way home, Eleanor held Maya's hand tightly in the heated back seat, whispering fragmented but affectionate stories of her distant youth, while Richard watched in the rearview mirror, realizing with amazement that his mother was more lucid and present than she had been in months. 6 transformative months later, the imposing Blackwood mansion in Lincoln Park had been completely transformed from a quiet, formal house into a true, welcoming home, filled with laughter and warm conversation. Maya, now officially enrolled at the prestigious Lincoln Park Academy and legally adopted by the family, came home from school every afternoon absolutely eager to spend precious time with Eleanor, who had become not only her legal adoptive mother, but her best friend and most cherished confidant. The cruel Alzheimer's was still inevitably present, slowly progressing as the relentless nature of the disease dictated, but something fundamental had changed dramatically. Eleanor was visibly calmer, genuinely happier, and her precious moments of lucidity were significantly more frequent and longer-lasting than the doctors had predicted. Grandma Eleanor, Maya would call affectionately every day, finding her in the perfectly landscaped garden where they enjoyed drinking tea together religiously, a ritual that had become sacred to both of them. "How was your day today?" Eleanor would always smile radiantly, her blue eyes shining with genuine recognition and unconditional love. "Infinitely better now that my granddaughter has arrived from school. Tell me absolutely everything about your classes, dear." They would talk for hours about fascinating books, future dreams, and precious memories that Eleanor could still access with Maya's infinitely patient help, creating an emotional bridge between generations that transcended illness. Richard regularly observed these touching interactions from his office, often with tears of emotion in his eyes, still amazed by the miraculous transformation that had taken place in their lives. His mother, who had previously spent entire days completely agitated and confused, now had long periods of genuine peace and contentment. The medical specialists were genuinely impressed and intrigued. Although the neurodegenerative disease continued to progress inevitably as expected, the dramatic improvement in Eleanor's quality of life was scientifically remarkable and almost inexplicable. It's unconditional love, Dr. Martinez had explained profoundly during a consultation. It doesn't cure the physical disease, but it heals the human spirit. And that makes all the difference in the world. Maya blossomed in ways that surprised absolutely everyone around her. Her dedicated teachers regularly reported that she was not only catching up on lost years of education at an impressive rate, but also displaying emotional maturity and compassion rare for any age. She had become the natural leader of an innovative school program that visited nursing homes, patiently teaching other privileged teenagers how to communicate effectively with dementia patients, sharing her unique wisdom gained through personal experience. One special evening during family dinner, Eleanor had a moment of complete mental clarity that left everyone moved. "Richard," she said, her voice surprisingly steady and completely lucid, "you know that Maya truly saved us, don't you? Not just on that specific day on the street, but literally every day since then." Richard placed his fork carefully on his plate, deeply moved to hear his mother speaking so clearly after weeks of confusion. "I know perfectly well, Mom. She saved our entire family." Eleanor turned affectionately to Maya with shining eyes. "And you, my dear girl, know that you've found much more than a family, don't you? You found your true purpose in life." Maya, now 15 and visibly more confident, but still retaining that natural kindness that had won Eleanor's heart, smiled brightly. "I've learned that helping vulnerable people isn't about having a lot to give materially. It's about giving absolutely everything you have, even when it seems like very little." Richard had also changed fundamentally, transformed by the experience. Blackwood Industries now consciously allocated 40% of its annual profits to carefully selected social assistance programs, especially focused on homeless youth and specialized care for the elderly. Maya had been appointed the program's official junior consultant, using her unique life experience to help create real, practical solutions to real, pressing social problems. On that quiet night, before going to sleep, Maya visited Eleanor in her room, as she did religiously every night without exception. "Grandma, do you remember clearly how we met?" Eleanor smiled serenely, her eyes completely clear and present. "You generously shared your last meal with a lost stranger. You showed me that kindness is the universal language of true love." She held Maya's hand tightly. "And you brought me back home." As she tucked Eleanor carefully into bed and wished her good night with love, Maya reflected deeply on how life could change dramatically in a single moment of conscious choice. She could easily have walked right past the confused lady on the sidewalk, as literally so many others had done without a second thought. But something special in her heart made her stop, share, care. And that single act of compassion had transformed 3 lives forever. Outside, Chicago continued its eternal nighttime dance of bright lights and constant movement. But inside the cozy Blackwood mansion, an unlikely family had discovered that true love knows no artificial boundaries of class, age, or circumstance. And Maya, the girl who had once been completely invisible on the icy streets, now shone like the light that had guided them all home. The story of Maya and Eleanor spread quietly throughout the city, discreetly inspiring others to take a second look at those whom society had forgotten. And every morning, when Maya woke up in her warm bed, next to a family who loved her unconditionally, she whispered a prayer of gratitude for the storm that had brought her home. If this story of compassion that transcends all barriers has touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Have you ever experienced how a small act of kindness can change entire lives? Have you ever been touched by the unexpected kindness of a stranger? Remember, sometimes the richest people are those who give when they have nothing to give. And sometimes miracles begin with someone simply stopping to care. Comment "Kindness saves" if you believe that compassion can transform the world, one life at a time. Until the next video with more stories that prove that love always finds a way home.